Hey, glad to have you guys back today. Today is a big day because DJI has dropped the DJI FPV system. That's right, it's here. You may have heard about it. You may have heard that there's low latency HD video going on. You may have heard that there is a control link. All of these are true, and I'm here to bring you all of that info and more. So let's dive right in. Check it out. We got a controller. We have these crazy bug-eye looking cool freaking goggles. Hang on, I'm gonna put these on. Just check this out. I think these may be the, I don't know. FPV goggles are never cool. But I gotta admit, these are pretty like cyberpunk, bug-eye, like something from the freaking future looking goggles. And they're pretty gnarly, I can't lie. What exactly did DJI release today anyways? You might be asking yourself. Well, what they've come out with is the DJI FPV system. It consists of 4 parts. We have the DJI FPV remote control. We have the DJI FPV goggles. We have the DJI FPV camera and the DJI FPV air unit. That's right, that is a lot of DJI and FPV all wrapped up into one. Now, I know a lot of you guys are probably regular viewers of my channel, and this is going to be a big simplification, but there are probably also a lot of you who are new to FPV and may just be familiar with DJI products like your Mavics, your Phantoms, your Inspires, and maybe some other drones as well. If you're new to FPV, I want to give you guys a little bit of a rundown of what FPV is and what all of us FPV pilots, whether it be racing or freestyle, what it is that we're about. So FPV is short for first person view. All that means is that we fly our drones from the perspective of the drone itself and only from the perspective of the drone. I know that when you fly a DJI Mavic or a Phantom, yes, in a way, a lot of that is done via FPV by looking at your phone, your tablet, or the screen for that product. But you can also look up and fly at line of sight. Now, when you fly strictly FPV, you're using goggles. And in particular, when we're dealing with FPV freestyle and FPV racing, we don't use any kind of gimbals like you would normally find on a Mavic or a Phantom that's stabilizing the shot. Let me show you what I mean. So this, what is that? That's a leaf. So this is my current setup. This is a Xhover Stingy V2. Doesn't matter the airframe. You can put the DJI FPV system on any platform. One of the things that you're going to notice about this drone is that there is no gimbal. This camera, which happens to be a GoPro, could be any number of cameras, as well as the FPV camera right here, are both hard mounted to the aircraft, meaning that there's no stabilization put on. All the stabilization is up to the flight controller to keep the aircraft stable in the air, and also my skills on the sticks. Now, one of the benefits of that kind of drone is it's built to be fully aerobatic. That means it's able to do flips and rolls and hang upside down with the, ideally with the throttle at minimum, so you're not throttling towards the ground, but it's able to hang upside down and do all sorts of really cool and interesting maneuvers. And me personally, I'm more of a freestyle pilot. There are also racing pilots out there who are flying very similar aircraft, maybe without the HD camera, maybe with it sometimes, but they're out there and racing and flying through air gates and enjoying another aspect of this hobby. So that's just a basic rundown of what FPV is. Let's talk about some of the differences between a traditional FPV system and some of the benefits that you might find with the DJI FPV system. Now, normally we only use an analog video downlink. That's only at 480p. DJI has come out with not only the DJI FPV system, but it's using the DJI HD low latency FPV transmission. So it's able to transmit an HD signal, we're talking 720p at up to 120 frames per second, to display in the goggles, and also record onboard the aircraft HD footage at 1080p 60 frames per second. Now, this isn't the first time that someone has come out with an HD video link system, but those systems that I've dealt with in the past have either been a higher latency than the analog system that we were using, or have had, major problems with the frame rate, or having to turn down the resolution to where it's almost back to that analog quality in order to get the low latency. Now, DJI has come along and they're claiming that we can do 720p, 120 frames per second with only 28 milliseconds of lag between the camera seeing something, it transmitting it to the goggles, displaying it to me making an input change on the controller, and that going back to the aircraft. That's just crazy. That's getting close to the latency of most control link alone. And DJI is also using a new protocol, the DJI HDL system. I haven't actually tested that, but it gets the latency down to 7 milliseconds on the control link, which is faster than every other system. When we can get HD footage and the control link and the entire system loop only with 28 milliseconds of delay, that is quite impressive. Now, that is also, best case scenario. We'll talk about my real world experience with some of the flights that are going to go on later on. Let me just scroll through a couple of these specs sheets so that I can lay out some numbers that we can sit here and talk about. Number one, it has a SD card input on both the goggles and the air unit, meaning that you can record the 1080p without any loss on the craft. And you can also record what is an HD signal in the goggles in case you were to have a situation where you crash somewhere and you need to figure out where it is. You'll have that video on the goggles still. It is a digital transmission system, so we are talking digital video here for the first time in FPV. It's a huge step. It's gonna allow you to fly with up to 8 of your friends at one time. For all of my FPV people, you know how impressive that is. Now, I can't say that I've tested it with 8 people. That's gonna have to come. There's only a few of these units out in the world, but with 8 pilots up in the air, if you can all have crystal clear HD footage, oh my God, it's gonna be sweet. Now, the goggles, they're 720p, 120 frames per second, HD display with the video recording, instant playback, broadcasting support. Now, it also has something called focus mode. You can either, don't quote me on this, I'm going to have to do a lot of more testing coming up, but I believe the focus mode is, with focus mode off, you get a lot of the OSD info, which can be some stuff from the flight controller. It's going to be some of your link quality information, whether or not you're recording, how much time, recording time is left on the aircraft, and the goggles. That's right. You'll know if your SD card fills up on the quad real time. That's kind of nice. And it's also really cool. This controller and the goggles both have a record button. So you can see that it's recording in your OSD. No more guessing games. Did I start the GoPro or not? It's just right there with you. Let's see, broadcasting support. So if you were doing something like a drift event where you're providing live coverage, or any kind of sporting event, if you're the FPV pilot providing live coverage, you'll have an HD output of that content. The air unit, up to 8 frequencies, records at 1080p, 60 frames per second, embedded remote controller receiver. That's right, the air unit is both a video transmitter and the RC receiver in one. Typically with FPV, we've used separate receiver systems and separate video systems, but with the integrated digital transmission, it's a two-way communication. They're saying that it's going to allow for lower levels of interference, which is going to help us get more pilots in the air. Anything else that things that I want to touch on? Okay. The DJI FPV camera has 3 main modes. Standard mode, which is going to be your HD footage, and just what you get to, what you see is what you get. That's going to be what most guys are going to use most of the time. Now, they have 2 other modes. One of those, racing mode. Apparently, racing mode is intended to highlight some brightly colored objects, maybe to help you see your flags, help you see the course markers more easily to know exactly where you're heading next as you navigate the race course. And then also LED mode. That's going to be for night tracks type racing, right? Where you're flying an LED lit course at night, going nuts. It's going to cut down on the noise noise in the blacks at the same time that it's going to make sure that those LEDs are not blown out in your FPV feed so that you can clearly see them and know what you're doing. Okay, anything else? We've already talked about the latency. Range. What kind of range? DJI is saying that we're going to get 4 kilometers of range out of this system. Now, obviously, that is a best case scenario. Talking clear line of sight, going up at a 45-degree angle, nothing in between you and the quad. We'll get into my experience in flying it in a minute, but anybody here that has flown FPV knows that when you start putting obstacles between you and the quad, whether it's a fence or a small building or a tree, that you're going to have some degradation of signal that's not the same as your maximum stated range. So don't expect to go, diving mountains and stuff right off the bat with this. I mean, I wouldn't trust it to that level just yet. I'm going to do some more testing. I really just wanted to make sure that my unit survived up until release date so that I could bring this content to you guys. Now that the product is out there, I'm going to quit babying it and I'm going to put it through its paces. And so expect more videos coming from me in the next weeks, really testing this system out, seeing how it handles crashes, seeing how it handles, all sorts of different scenarios. You know what? Let's grab it real quick so I can show you guys what we're looking at. One thing to note, as this is more successful, you're going to see more frames designed around this system, but this guy here does not fit into the Stingy V2 frame, so I kind of had to strap it down to the top where I'd normally put a GoPro, as well as the camera being more of the mini cam size, not your full-size cam, not your micro cam, which is really what the Stingy V2 is designed around. So I had to go with some taller standoffs to get it to fit in. I had to strap the air unit to the top of the quad, made some makeshift antenna mounts to keep them out of the props just with the zip tie. High tech, guys, high tech. So with my current setup, I wasn't really confident that if I put this through a bunch of crashes that it was going to survive, so I've babied it up till this point. All right, enough talking specs. Let's get this baby out in the field, put it up in the air, see what it can do, and let you guys know what my first impressions are flying it. All right, here we go. For my very first flight, I'm going to keep it completely over the grass because it's been a minute since I flew this setup. It's kind of just been on standby. Just in case something goes wrong, it's going to be over grass because I don't want to break it right off the bat. Okay. All right. We're up. I got a little bit of jello. That's probably because these motors aren't the greatest. It'll be a good test of the system to see just how it's handling everything. As for latency, I mean, it feels pretty low to me. You can see in the on the screen what latency we're working with, and right now it's saying 31 milliseconds. 29. Like, that is similar to the analog system plus control link that we have on our quads like regularly. It feels very similar. I don't know that I could tell a difference from my analog system. See, I was able to just make a last minute change to dodge that. Now, I haven't hooked up the OSD features, so I'm not 100% sure just when this battery is going to be done, so I'm going to land a little bit on the early side just to make sure I don't over discharge and fall out of the sky. Alright, I'm going to try going behind me a little bit. This is over concrete, so I'm just going to cruise it, see if I have any more issues than when I was over in front of myself. Seems to be fine. The latency there on the screen still showing about the same. I feel like it's getting a little choppier, like it's not the 60 frames per second. I can see the resolution on the sides of the screen is kind of downgrading, but that's fine. I would rather have that downgrade than, to completely lose video. It definitely I feel like it's not so much that the latency is increasing as it is that maybe the frame rate in the goggles is decreasing when I'm over here. Just with a lot of objects between me and the radio and the goggles, this is not an ideal situation. The camera is sitting on top of my car, and the car is basically between me and the quad, as well as these fences and buildings and everything. Now see, as I come back over here, the frame rate in the goggles picks right back up. Now it's recording on the goggles and on the air unit itself, so I'm hoping that I'm gonna get usable footage to show you guys both from the goggles and from the craft, so you'll know what you have to work with later, as well as kind of an idea of what it is that I'm seeing. Now the field of view in the goggles is fantastic. These are definitely some of the crispiest goggles that I've ever had. Oh, you know what, I'm just noticing now that channel 1 signal info on the, I haven't necessarily set the diopters to their most optimal setting. Couldn't really see the bottom left side. I got a signal indicator over there that's telling me when I come over here. See, it's gone to 3 bars. Let's see how much lower it'll get. 2 bars, and it turns red at 2 bars. That's when I'm putting like the building and all sorts of stuff. 1 bar. So it's saying that that's the worst. I'm gonna go ahead and bring it in and land it before I have any issues, since I don't have that OSD or telemetry data currently set up to give me feedback. Let's just land it in the grass. I want to be super easy on this right now. We're not trying to test durability. Okay, I'm going to try one thing different this time. I'm going to do this one in the high quality instead of the low latency mode. Let's see what happens as I fly away from myself. I'm still seeing a little bit of drop in quality in the corners there, but yeah. The latency is definitely, well, I don't know, man. It's, so we're now at 40 some milliseconds. Let's go over here where I was getting some of that the lower signal. See what happens. All right, I'm just reluctant to really push this to its limits. Oh man, yeah, I can definitely feel it there. We're getting a lot of dropped frames in the goggles. Yeah, that's almost unflyable when I get over into that corner. I'm gonna bring it back in, land it, and switch over to the high to the low latency mode again. Oh. One of the downsides with this system is kind of in terms of the amount of penetration. I'm already seeing some. I just want to make sure that it's not causing an issue with just the penetration alone. Dude, that is the clearest clouds I've ever seen in the goggles. I will say that the HD quality in these goggles is phenomenal. I also think my FPV camera isn't set to the same angle that I normally do, which is throwing me off a bit for sure. I'm excited to get home and see how this footage looks. Now, I haven't tweaked any of the settings, like turning saturation down or the, you know, trying to get something that's super like ready for color grading. I've worked a long time on getting my GoPro settings for FPV to look really good after color grading, and that's just not something that I'm going to be able to do in the course of one little video with this system. Now, I'm literally filming this and flying it the day before the official product launch. Due to just being busy with other projects and stuff, I haven't really had a chance to fly it properly earlier, and I don't know. I'm a procrastinator. I want to know when the system is ready to go and then kind of jump on the bandwagon. But I gotta say, I'm impressed with how it's performing for what it is. Okay, so people are starting to show up at the pavilion over there. I'm going to keep it out of the parking lot. Really, I'm just doing one last pack in order to test. Now that the direct sunlight has kind of given way, we got some storms rolling in. This is just in case some of the rolling shutter was an issue before, in order to test and show how it performs in a little bit cloudier situations. Usually this smooths stuff out, not rolling shutter, when we had a little bit of issues with the jello before, because this typically smooths stuff out. All right. I think most of my issues with the, when I say jello, what I'm really referring to is what I'm seeing in the goggles, which is I'm just perceiving as kind of a jitteriness. And I think that that is just because of the frame rate that I am getting on the downlink. I'll be really curious to see what the DVR footage looks like from this. That's the onboard recording from the goggles versus what the quad is seeing. Yeah, getting a little risky coming right by myself. Like I said, this is kind of a janky build that I took to a robot battle in Amsterdam and haven't flown it since, but it's my only setup that's on 4S, so this is all I've really got. Oh, and I have a little bit of water on the lens. So the rain is a-coming. Oh yeah, we're getting more. I'm feeling more and more drops. I'm gonna bring it in and land. I don't want to crash because of the because of a little bit of water on it and have that taint the results. Just being able to have this HD feed is really phenomenal. I might have to tweak with it a little bit more to get maybe the smoothest video. Probably a lot of that is going to have to do with getting my quad flying better. But you get the idea. I am really impressed with this for a first day out flying, that this system is performing how it is. And I really look forward to putting it through its paces in the coming weeks. All right, let's put this guy on the ground. All right, that was a blast, guys, but I want to take a minute before we call it a day here to go over some of the footage and talk about my first impressions, not only of the HD footage that I was able to capture with the DJI FPV system today, but also what I was able to capture in the goggles. That's what I was seeing as I was flying, and also what we would normally think of as DVR footage. Now, let's just take a look at some of this. Number one, you get audio with your HD footage, but you get no audio with the DVR footage. Now, there may be some kind of way to get an audio link for those of you guys that like to fly with audio, but currently I'm not aware of any way. A couple other things to note here. Let's take a look at one of the DVR clips. Or clips that were recorded in the goggle, because there's some interesting things that are going on. Now, if you look here, it starts out when I'm flying in the field in front of me, everything looks good. It's a nice, crispy 720p image. But when I start to go behind some stuff, in particular one of the fences or a tree or anything, they do an interesting thing, which I think is actually quite clever. The left and right sides of the image start to pixelate before the center section does. Now, if you've flown FPV any amount of time, whether it's freestyle or racing, you know that really what's important is what you're currently looking at, because that's what you're flying at really fast, whether it's a gap you're about to hit or a gate or maybe a power loop that you're trying to pull off. Most of the important information is in that center section of the image. So what they'll do is that they kind of drop down the image quality along the sides. Now, I have been told by other friends who have this system that prior to the firmware update that was built in to enable S-Bus, because the DJI HDL controlling system is only working on beta flight 4.1 right now, which is not flying the best. So what they did was they pushed an update that allows us to use S-Bus so that it'll work with pretty much any firmware out there. But one of the things that came along with that update was a little bit poorer performance when it came to penetration. Now, I'm sure that this is probably just something that's going to be fixed in firmware updates. This is very much a pre-production model at this point. I don't want to pass any judgment, but I'm just, I want to show you guys the footage that I'm seeing, the footage that I'm capturing, and offer some explanations that I have for that. All right, so yeah, you get some pixelation as the link quality drops. While you get a little bit of pixelation in your left and right sides of the image, the HD footage that it is able to capture on the air unit itself has none of that. Because it's not having to get transmitted, so there's no data loss. You're getting full 1080p at 60 frames per second, and it looks great. It looks a little bit... I'm so used to 30 frames per second because I record everything in 30 these days, but I wanted to give it the best possible footage that we could get during the flying. I'm not sure if it's getting the pixelation because that's how it's designed to lose quality in the sides, or if it's losing quality in the sides because of the fast update and the flickering caused by the propellers, and it's doing something with the vertical lines. I can't really speak to that. Not an engineer that worked on this, just telling you from a pilot's perspective what I'm seeing and how it's affecting my flight. One thing that I am noticing is with the DJI FPV system, it's not quite as wide angle as I'm used to getting from my HD recordings. That's not all bad, especially if you're talking about a situation where you're chasing drift cars or you're filming a subject. It helps you get in closer. But, it's just something to be aware of if this is something you are looking to buy. Now that we've talked about the features, we've gone out, we've flown it, we've reviewed the footage, what are my big takeaways? My takeaways are that this is a powerful new system that's going to provide a lot of different options for FPV pilots, and I think that that's a great thing. I think that it's going to be really interesting if we can get 8 pilots in the air at a race and have live digital video of that race. There is so much promise in this system for a lot of aspects of the hobby. I'm not sure that I want to put the DJI FPV system on my beater quads that I'm going to bandos and crashing a million times just yet. I need to do some crash testing and get a feel for how durable of a system this is, but it's definitely has interesting applications. I really like the idea of being able to pitch this to a drift race or to a motocross or to any number of sporting events to be like, yo, I can follow the action. I can give you live HD footage that you can put up on the big screen close up of the action. This is going to open up a lot of new avenues and uses for FPV, and I'm really excited about that and excited to see where DJI is able to take this with future firmware updates and, what's the next generation going to look like? Because they don't just make a Mavic and quit. That's right. They make like a Mavic 2 and a Mavic 2 Pro and a Mavic Air. So I'm imagining that there are going to be more iterations of the DJI FPV system, and I'm excited to see where this stuff goes. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget, Stingy V2 Forged Carbon pre-orders are live, and you can save $15 by getting in on that pre-order. They're gorgeous. Why wouldn't you want one? New merch, Power Loop shirt. Super proud of this one. You know me, I love my power loops and I like to show it. So if you love some power loops and you want to show it, check out the links below. We got links not only to the shirt, not only to the frame, also, imagine that, the DJI FPV system that we're here talking about. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, click that subscribe button. If you are new to FPV, welcome to this community. We are a warm, welcoming bunch and glad to have you here, whether you're flying the DJI system or more, something we've seen before. Make sure you subscribe, check out more content, learn more about FPV, and follow along because I'm always off on a new adventure. I really appreciate your guys' support. It keeps me in the air. So let's get together and fly sometime. All right, we'll catch y'all next time. Bye.